Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle Larson, and I'm the Manager of Cooperative Education here at Acadia University. When I started university, beyond choosing a degree of interest, I honestly wasn't thinking about other ways I could begin preparing for my future career. I mean, that was 4 years away. I had lots of time. In hindsight, there were simple things that I could have started doing from day one to pave my way to future success. My goal today is to provide you with some tips, insights, and knowledge on opportunities available at Acadia and things which you can start doing today to get the groundwork paved for an amazing future that's awaiting you. So thanks for joining me today. So a couple of housekeeping items. Microsoft Live, which we're doing this event through, has a 20 to 30-second delay. So you may type in questions, but you might not see those come up until 20 to 30 seconds later, just to take note of that. And we are going to encourage you to put questions into the Q&A box throughout the presentation as you have them, but we will wait until the end of the presentation to address those questions. And we're going to have one of my colleagues, Beth McKenzie from the co-op office, helping us with that Q&A. And I also want to take a moment to introduce Matthew Balser, who you can't see, but he's in the background today helping us with the production of this live event. So I'd like to thank them both for being here. Okay, so on the agenda today, I'm going to talk about 4 really different things, but things that all tie together. So I want to talk about seizing opportunity, something called the Acadia Café, and talk about the power of networking. I'm going to talk a little bit about Acadia's co-op program. As I mentioned, I'm the manager of co-op here at Acadia, and so as part of my role, I'm helping students determine what they want to do with their careers and helping them secure opportunities towards that future. And so I want to talk to you a bit about that today. And then I'm going to go into a little bit about just creating a basic framework for an excellent resume, and then we'll go into that live Q&A session. So here we go. So as you begin here at Acadia, you are embarking upon an incredible journey of self-exploration. And while it's absolutely 100% normal to not have your future figured out yet, it's really important to stress the fact that you are the master of your own destiny. The actions that you take each day can help you build towards that future. So I really encourage you that as you start at Acadia, meet the day with intention. You have the opportunity to take from the Acadia experience as much as you want. Acadia is a really unique, special place where professors will know you by name. That's important to know, and where you can be involved in the community, where you will be genuinely encouraged to be all that you can be. Chances are that you came to Acadia for some of those reasons, so my advice is to really take advantage of that. As I talk about some of the ways that you can take advantage of the opportunities here at Acadia, know that sooner is always better than later. Seize the day and start following some of these practices that I'm going to talk about now. Don't wait until 2nd, 3rd, or 4th year. It can sometimes be too late if you wait too long. So I mentioned that your professors will know you by name. I really encourage you while you're here at Acadia to get to know your professors, some who honestly look like this guy here on the screen. Professors can often seem scary, especially when you're starting at university. I remember how I felt. They knew everything and I really didn't know anything. And that does make it really intimidating. But what I didn't realize until quite late in my degree is that professors are just people, and at Acadia, professors are really as invested in your future and your success as you are. And the vast majority are very, very open to having conversations with students. So, make time to talk to them after class or during what we call office hours. You'll typically see professors posting hours when they're available. Talk to them, particularly if you're struggling with something, because they're there to help you. But also reach out to them if you find a particular topic interesting, or if you have more questions, or you simply want to learn about things. Professors can be a critical component in helping you find your passion and making connections for you, whether it be a research opportunity or even a job opportunity. So show interest, show enthusiasm, even finding that one professor who you really strongly identify with. It can be life-changing, opening doors to opportunities that might not otherwise have been available. One other thing to keep in mind is that many employers will be looking for an academic reference from you when you apply to jobs. Professors can't provide a reference or speak to your abilities if they don't know you. So at minimum, put effort into your work, be respectful with professors, remembering that a negative impression can be just as lasting and just as impactful as making a positive impression. My hope is that this next slide is an obvious tip, but I offer it as a reminder that any person that you meet, any interaction that you have, can change the trajectory of your life. I'm going to take administrative assistants as an example. Within your departments, admin assistants are exceptionally connected people with a wealth of knowledge. And so what you'll find is that students who take the time to be kind, to thank people for their service, will really build goodwill and are remembered positively. And you might be surprised at the doors that this in and of itself can open. Acadia is a very small environment, and you're going to build a reputation for yourself on campus from the very beginning of your degree. Everyone knows everyone here. Positivity attracts positivity, so it's really important to keep that in mind as you interact with people. Acadia also affords you the opportunity to try new things. I really strongly encourage you to take electives, as many as you can in your first year. If you are a science student, try a business course. Maybe you didn't have the opportunity to try that out while you were in high school. And I'll use myself as an example. I came in as a biology student. It was third year until I took an accounting course. Had I taken accounting in first year, I might be an accountant today, very different from what I do now. You know, if you're in arts, maybe take a nutrition course. If you're in business, maybe try politics. By testing out courses beyond your immediate major early on, you may inadvertently stumble across something that you never knew about and something that you absolutely love. It's amazing the ability to try out different things, and you know, individuals typically will start down the particular degree path for a variety of reasons. But what I have seen with students is that sometimes you can become really focused on what that primary goal had been, and in turn dismiss other options available, which could be a better match for you. So don't be afraid to explore, to go outside your comfort zone. And you know what, if you find a degree that you like better than the degree that you started with, don't feel that switching degrees is some sort of a failure. I feel like that's a message that gets sent to students, and in no way is it a failure at all. Ultimately, you want to find something that makes you happy, and sometimes the degrees we start in, which we thought we'd like, well, it just doesn't turn out that way. So this is what you're here for at Acadia, to become the you that you were meant to be. And so if you find something else that you love, don't be afraid to pursue it. At Acadia, we talk a lot about a liberal arts education. You're going to hear that quite a bit at Acadia. In some, liberal arts is about educating the whole person, allowing you to thrive in a variety of different careers. People who have varied backgrounds and knowledge bring really unique perspectives to the table, which is why Acadia encourages you to be broad in the courses that you pursue. And in speaking with employers, we certainly see employers being really interested in students who have very diverse backgrounds. When I was going to university, I was of the impression that education only happens in the classroom. And I can say today that I couldn't have been more wrong with that. You're going to learn through each and every experience different transferable skills like leadership, communication, organization, teamwork. And those transferable skills are transferable because you can take them from any one career and use them in another career. Acadia offers a myriad of opportunities to get involved outside of the classroom that develops these really sought after transferable skills that are going to increase not only your ability, but also your employability. Additionally, getting involved allows you to begin to build connections and get noticed, particularly when you show up to things like departmental talks and gatherings. Again, having that ability to create closer connections with faculty and expanding your knowledge in your field of study. This year, for sure, it's definitely going to be a little bit more challenging to get involved, but look for every opportunity you have. Building connections. If you take nothing else from this presentation, I would like you to take this from it, that building connections is at the heart of everything. And this brings me to something called the Acadia Café. So this might be a surprising stat for you to hear, but case in point, 85% of all jobs that are created via networking. You'll never find them on any job board. They are attained through the people that you know and the connections that you have made, which is why it's so important to build that network. An easy way to get involved at Acadia and to build meaningful connections is through an exclusive offering available to all students here at Acadia called the Acadia Café, which is a platform which is supported by an organization called 10,000 Coffees, and it's sponsored by RBC Future Launch. The main goal of this platform is to connect you with Acadia alumni as well as community members to have meaningful conversations which will help you explore different career paths and or receive advice on school and work. And so this is a free service to Acadia students, and signing up takes only about 5 minutes. Basically, if you go onto the web and you Google the Acadia Café, you're going to see the website come up, scroll to the bottom, and you'll see a Join the Cafe button. When you click that, it'll take you to a page where you complete a profile. Things like really easy things, you know, what year of school are you in? What degree are you doing? What are your current career interests? And what do you want to get advice on? Based on your profile, each month you are matched with a connection. And your connection, as I said, could be an alumni, could be a community member, it could even be a senior student who shares the most profile matches with you. You'll receive an e-introduction to your connection via email, and then it's up to the two of you to connect, to find a time to have what I like to call an e-coffee, where you can chat for, you know, approximately an hour at a time when works for your schedule. So the meeting these days are typically virtual, so it might be by Zoom, by MS Teams, by Skype. The time commitment, as I said, it's really short. It's only 1 hour per month, and it's really a simple process to sign up and get involved. I also know that meeting new people can be really intimidating. So along with the monthly introductions that you'll receive, the other thing that's nice about the Acadia Café is that it actually provides you with conversation tips and icebreakers, things that you can talk about to your connection to help you improve upon your networking skills, which again are so important in furthering your career. On the Acadia Café currently, we have about 600 members. We've had a lot of people sign up, and alumni are really excited about sharing their Acadia experiences with you and to help move your career forward in any possible way that they can. So if you do end up signing up for this free service, it's incredibly important to respond to your match when they reach out. Don't leave them hanging. This really creates a lot of disappointment for alumni when students don't reach back out, and it actually creates a bit of a negative impression. And again, you never know when that match may show up later in your life as you're transitioning to the workplace. I also encourage you to be really open to the matches who you get connected with, who at first glance, they may not seem that relevant to you or your goals, but One thing to keep in mind with this is that you can learn something from absolutely everyone, no matter their background. So use the conversations to explore new careers or gain advice about how to navigate at Acadia. And I threw this testimonial up from one of our first year students last year in computer science, who really found that this was such a great opportunity to meet new people and to expand his horizons. Okay, so I'm going to move on to Acadia's co-op program, and this is some of our co-op staff that we have smiling at you. So co-op is an option with around 85% of Acadia's different degrees. So we have a co-op option available across almost all of our arts programs, our science programs, business, community development, and computer science. And if you don't happen to see your degree program here right now, and probably if you're in that category, you might be taking kinesiology, music, or applied science or pre-engineering. Don't worry about that too much. You'll have lots of opportunities here at Acadia for hands-on learning. And for pre-engineering, most of you will go on to DAL to finish your degrees, where you will have a mandatory co-op option. So you have an option with your degree to do co-op if you're in that list that you just saw, but what is it exactly? So co-op is an academic program that allows you to go out and work with employers in your field of study as part of your degree, gaining hands-on learning that's discipline related, working on real life projects with employers. And so typically when students are out working with employers as part of their degree, typically work terms tend to be 4 months in length, but we do see opportunities that are 8, 12, and 16 months in length as well. And when you're out, you're working with that employer full time, so 35 hours or more per week. And those opportunities, if you're familiar with co-op in high school, one of the differences at the university level is that these opportunities are actually paid. And our students are typically making between $15 to $16 per hour, but that can vary. And incredibly, in 2019, collectively, our co-op students earned a total of $2.7 million in wages, which, not surprisingly, goes a long ways towards paying tuition. In that same year, 50% of our co-op students graduated completely debt-free, which is amazing. One of the other really beautiful things about co-op is that it's recognized on your transcript. And when you're out with an employer, it's actually a course that you get credit for. So for every 4-month co-op work term, you receive the equivalent of 2 credit hours. So by the time that you're actually done co-op, and most students will complete 3 4-month co-op work terms, you will have achieved the equivalent of 2 elective courses. So if you're someone who really likes to learn in a hands-on way, this is a way, these are courses that you can complete with your degree to help you graduate getting these hands-on applied skills. So really great. And one of the best parts of co-op is that because you're doing these 3 4-month work terms, co-op students will graduate with a year's worth of work experience in their field of study, which gives you a huge competitive advantage as you're making that transition into the job market after graduation. There are lots of benefits to doing co-op. So one of the main reasons that we see students choosing the co-op option with their degree is that you may have come to Acadia knowing that you like a particular discipline, but you're not really sure what you want to do with when you graduate. And a lot of students don't even necessarily know what they can do with their degree, and that's completely normal. Co-op is a reflection of the job market, and because you get a chance to try out 3 to 4 different opportunities, co-op really allows you to define your career and educational choices in a really tangible way. You can try things out that you think that you're going to like to see if you in fact do, and if you do, that can put you on a particular path. Sometimes students find out that they didn't like something that they thought that they might, and that allows you to change where you're going early in your degree. One of the major benefits of doing co-op is that you gain access to exclusive opportunities with different companies, not-for-profits, provincial, federal government, that those opportunities are not available to students who are not in the co-op program. And the reason for that is that employers love the concept of co-op. They love the fact that this isn't just a summer job for you, that you are actually doing this as part of your degree requirements. And so co-op students tend to be highly motivated, really wanting to learn. And so to give you a sense of the scope of that, in 2019, co-op staff posted 3,300 positions to co-op students. Now, of course, co-op positions have to be related to your discipline. So let's say you're in chemistry, you would only see positions that were with chemistry employers. So you wouldn't see 3,300 positions, but you would see a very good variety of different opportunities. And because you're out with these employers, the other thing that happens is you get to develop really strong industry connections and gain valuable references. And I just talked about how impactful that can be on your career, and it really truly is. It allows you to establish a network so that when you graduate, you have people that you can call on either for direct jobs or for just references for other positions that you might be interested in. And of course, many of our students secure jobs with these co-op employers before graduation. Employers are hiring you because they often use it as a recruitment mechanism to see whether you'll be a fit for their company. And so if you've gone to work for an employer, they really like you, you really like them, it often makes sense for them to offer you a job before you graduate. And there's nothing more satisfying than going into fourth year knowing that you have a job waiting for you. So you're like, this sounds amazing. How do I sign up? So many of you on the call today, I believe, are probably in first year. And if you are, just take the year to, get acclimatized to university, work really hard at your courses, get involved, join the Acadia Café. And at the beginning of second year, this is the normal time to apply for the co-op option with your degree. Students must have between 24 to 75 credits completed to be eligible to apply for co-op. And so 24 credits equates to eight courses at Acadia. So if you're in first year, you're taking 8 courses this year, you'll be eligible to apply next September. The other main eligibility criteria that we're looking for is a cumulative GPA of 2.5 or above. And so if you meet those 2 criteria and you submit an application, there's no caps on co-op enrollment, and so you will be accepted to the program. We have an application deadline for co-op of October the 1st each year. So again, if you don't qualify this year, you probably will qualify next year. And I encourage you to look for emails out from co-op staff. If you'd like to meet with somebody to talk about co-op as an option, we're certainly happy to meet with you. There's tons of information available on our co-op website at coop.acadiau.ca, and this is also where you would go to apply if, in fact, you do qualify for co-op currently. One of the other main benefits that students talk to us about joining co-op is that one of the things that we do is we provide you with exclusive professional development training to get you ready to compete for co-op positions. But that professional development training will be pertinent your entire career. So some of the things that we work with you on are resume and cover letter development, interviewing skills, how to create your own opportunities, and workplace ethics. And so because we have a little bit of expertise in resume development, today what I wanted to do was to give you just some basic tips for how to prepare a resume as a starting place for you. Okay, so what is the purpose of a resume? A lot of the resumes that I see from students who I start working with in co-op list anything and everything that they've ever done in their lives. And that's what a lot of people think that a resume is this listing of everything that you've ever done. But really what it is It's meant to provide a potential employer with just a quick summary or overview of your experience, background, and skills that are pertinent, relevant to the position that you're applying to. You also have this one opportunity to create a positive first impression, and employers often will only look at a resume honestly. I hear varying numbers, but the one that I stick with is about 30 seconds. They're going to look at it and decide if they're a candidate, if you're a candidate that they want to speak further with. And that is the ultimate goal. Your resume is meant to help get you to that interview stage. So a basic resume layout is going to have your contact information at the top. It's really important to have a current phone number, a current email address where an employer could reach out to you for an interview. In this particular example, there's also address information. That's less relevant these days than it used to be, but we still do see students including this information from time to time. One little tip is that the word resume doesn't need to appear on your resume. It'll be quite clear what the document is, and so we suggest just starting with your contact information. I feel for students that there are three really mandatory headings on a resume, and I'm going to go into each one of those a little bit more. But you really want to see these three headings: education, skills, and work experience. I have experience in brackets because one of the things we see is that a lot of our students coming into co-op may not actually have work experience. And again, that's completely okay, but you may have volunteer experience. So if you're in a situation where you haven't had the opportunity to get a lot of work experience, sometimes you can shorten this heading just to experience, which allows you to combine work and volunteer experience together, which can make it a more robust section within your resume. There's lots of optional headings that you can include, but certainly volunteer activities or experience is really important. You might want to have an awards section. You want to list any certifications that you have, and extracurricular activities that are also really important. I'm going to get into why. Okay, but let's start with your education section. So to start off with, you want to list all the degrees that you hold or are currently working on with your most recent one first. So for everybody on the call today, your entry from Acadia is going to be at the top of your education section because that's what you're doing currently. And so it's really important to tell employers what degree that you're doing and really make that prominent. Maybe you'll bold it to make it stand out. You also want to tell them the time frame that you're doing that education, as well as what the institution is that you're attending. If there are any things that make that degree particularly specialized, you want to include them. So it could be a specialization within your degree. It could be a minor that you're completing that is not at all related to the degree that you're doing, but makes you, again, a very diverse candidate. If you have a great GPA, well, you should put that on there simply because it will allow the employer to see that you're academically inclined, and it may be something that impresses them enough to move to that interview stage. It's also really important at this stage of the game to be listing any scholarships or awards that you've attained at this level. And if you have a lot of them, you might end up creating a separate awards section. Going back up to this list, you can also include your high school education if it adds something significant to your resume. So let's say that you were valedictorian or you graduated with a French bilingual certification. Anything that will help you stand out as a candidate is valid to include. You don't have to include it, but at this stage of the game, I usually do recommend to students to have high school education listed. Okay, moving on to the next mandatory section. The skills section, probably at this stage of the game, is one of the most key sections because it demonstrates the fit that you have for the role that you're applying to. And so you want to include relevant skills that you've gathered through your education, work, and volunteer experience. even through projects and extracurricular activities. And you want to aim for a mix of academic and transferable skills, again, depending on what position that you're applying to. This section, for many of you could be really, really long, but you want to limit it to about 7 skills just so that it doesn't become so big that nobody can read it. And so you want to pick out the skills that you think are the most important and most relevant to the jobs that you're applying to. Well, what might some of those skills be? It could be skills specific to your major, but it could be things like problem solving, organization and time management. If you speak multiple languages, this is really important because a lot of employers are looking for that. Really important to list your computer skills because there's not many jobs that don't require that anymore. There's a number of these that may be pertinent to you. And if you are applying for roles that are specific to your major, so let's say that you are an accounting student, you are going to want to look through your course descriptions and your course notes and think about the different accounting courses that you're taking and the skills that you have within that particular area and add those to your resume. So maybe you've sat down, you've kind of identified a list of the different skills that you have. What we want you to do is to not simply list them on your resume. Employers want to see some sort of proof of those skills. Because, let's face it, anyone could say that they're organized, but can you prove it to me? So including examples of how you used or developed those skills can be quite important in proving the fact that you do in fact have organization skills. So you can use 2 questions to build very strong skill statements. So obviously you want to identify the skill, but also how did you attain or use the skill? So I'm going to provide you with some examples. So as an example, instead of just listing leadership on your resume, you could change that into showed excellent leadership ability, supervising 4 other employees and providing on-the-job training. As an employer reading that, it tells me a lot if I'm reading between the lines. It tells me that your employer trusted you to supervise other people, so you're obviously responsible beyond being a leader, and you're knowledgeable enough in your role to be able to provide training to others. That really speaks to me as somebody who's hiring students. As another example, communication. So implemented a peer outreach program resulting in 10% increase in engagement. The fact that you've been able to actually put a number into this really showcases and again, provides a concrete example of how the work that you did in implementing that peer outreach program had a direct impact on what you were doing and the results that you achieved from doing that. So think about how you can demonstrate the skills that you have acquired, again, through education, different forms of experience. Skill statements come into play in your work experience section, which is that third really critical section. And again, if you don't have work experience, this can be changed to experience. I want to provide 2 examples here. The first that's at the top of this slide is what I typically see students submit to me on the first draft of a resume. So this person was a server. It was during the summer. They worked at Boston Pizza in Toronto, and they did what I expected a server would do. They served food, they greeted customers, they cleared and washed tables. A lot of people feel that a resume is just about telling the reader what it was that you did. But truly, if you'd only had these first 2 lines and told me that you were a server, I probably would have been able to make the assumption of what it was that you did. I wouldn't have even really needed this explanation. I want you to compare that to the bottom section, which again has the same information at the top, but instead of telling the reader what it is that you did, what this particular example does is it tells the reader how you did it and what skills you used to be truly successful in this role. So worked in a fast-paced environment, consistently meeting table turnover targets. Awarded Employee of the Month based on positive customer feedback regarding friendliness and outgoing personality. Worked collaboratively in a team of 10 to provide the ultimate customer experience. Easily adapted to new public health guidelines, ensuring proper sanitation protocols were followed at all times. When I compare the two, they're the same job, but there's no comparison. I look at this particular role, and even if I'm hiring for a position that is not a server, this person has demonstrated to me that they are motivated, they're able to work collaboratively, they obviously have a great attitude. They got Employee of the Month for that friendliness and outgoing personality. And one of the important things now is that it shows that even in this really challenging time, they adapted to the new normal, making sure that they were following the rules that they needed to keep everybody safe. If I'm looking at two resumes, I'm hiring this person over this person every time. So when you're doing your work experience section, again, the key is to think about not what you did and to articulate not what you did, but how you did it and the skills that you used to be successful. Think about what an employer would want in an employee. Another way to think about it is if you were, maybe you have to be on some sort of a team for one of your course assignments. What are some of the skills and qualities that you're going to be looking for in your teammates? Kind of like if you were the employer, what are you looking for? And that may help you come up with some of those qualities and skills that you want to include. If you have volunteer experience, this is a great thing to have on a resume. And again, it's one of the reasons that I really encourage you to get involved at Acadia, because it can really help not just develop your skills, but help you build up your resume in terms of the skills that you have. So you can follow the same format as you did for work experience. So this section here looks very much like what we saw in the last slide. Or if you have a ton of volunteer experiences, sometimes you actually simply just need to list them versus going into skills statements. A lot of students that I talk to don't put a lot of value on volunteer experience. And what I often say to students is that the only difference between work experience and volunteer experience is that with volunteer experience, you weren't paid. That's really the only difference. And on some level, volunteer experience is actually more impressive because you did it through some other motivation than monetary payment, whether it's the kindness of your heart or just that you're very motivated. So again, just really encouraging you to get involved and to build that volunteer experience section because employers will be impressed by it. The same goes for extracurricular activities. So I've included what this section might look like on a resume. So you have your heading and then just a listing of the different things that you've done. And again, it comes back to employers looking for people who are diverse, who are into more than just what's happening in the classroom. You're somebody who's giving back to the community, or you have interests that may help you develop different skills. All right, so that was a lot of information, but I have some final tips for you. One of the things that's really important once you've completed your resume is to check some things like your fonts, your font size, line and paragraph spacing, and you want to make sure that that's consistent all the way throughout your resume. So what you don't want to do is, let's say, start using a Calibri font and then halfway through switch to Times New Roman. It's going to make it look unprofessional, and the more consistent font size and spacing can be, the better that resume is going to look. You also want to, I really encourage you to print off a copy and to look at it on paper. And the reason for that is that, number one, it gives you a better idea of what that resume looks like when it's printed, but it's also sometimes easier to see mistakes once it's printed. I'm not sure why that is, but it happens to me all the time. So print it off, take a look at it, and at the same time, get a friend or two to proofread that resume. They may see mistakes, spelling errors that you didn't see, or you can visit Acadia's Writing Center for some help with that. I will tell you that as an employer, if there is a spelling or grammar mistake, even one, that can be enough for your resume not to be looked at and for you not to get an interview. Employers want that document to be perfect, so you need to spend the time making sure that you've caught all of those errors, and you really need it to look good too. I often use the example that if I'm walking into Sport Check to buy a pair of running sneakers, you know, I am looking for functionality. It's gotta feel good on my foot, and it's gotta give me the support that I want, but those sneakers have to look good too. And I'm typically not going to buy them unless it looks good. So really make sure that your resume looks professional. There's lots of great templates out there that are available to really give you sort of that professional looking feel. One of the things that we recommend in the co-op office which is counter to what a lot of people think, we actually recommend not including references on your resume. The reason for that is that you want to be in control of that information, so that if you give a resume to an employer and you have an interview, you have the time to tell your references. And by the way, I should back up. References are people that you have either worked with, or maybe it's a professor who can speak to your qualities and your ability to an employer. And employers will often call references to do reference checks. To get a second opinion on whether you're a good fit for the role. And so if you keep that information off of your resume, you can make sure that if you're giving your references out to an employer, you can tell your references to expect a call and get them prepared for that call. The more prepared they are, the better the reference is that they're going to provide. My last tip is to, keep your resume up to date. Your resume is a working document. Each term, your contact information may change, your GPA, you're going to develop new skills and new work experience all the way through your entire degree. So continue to update it semester by semester. If you're looking for more resume help, there are a couple of different options for you. You could email Paulo Santana here at Acadia for a referral to Nova Scotia Works. They can help you work on a resume. And if you are registered with Accessibility Services, you can ask them to connect you with a society called the Neil Squire Society that will help you with different things like resumes, interview preparation, and things of that nature. And one other way to get more resume help is to join co-op in second year, and we will work one-on-one with you, providing you with that professional development help. All right, my final note before we go to the Q&A. I loved my time at Acadia. It was a wonderful experience for me. And, there are some people out there who believe that access to university education is a right. I don't disagree with them. However, in our existing society, one could argue that a university education is a privilege. You or those who support you have worked and sacrificed for you to get here to Acadia, and congratulations for getting here, because I know that you worked hard to do that. So, not everyone will have this chance in their lifetime to get a university education. So I really encourage you to, honor them, honor yourself by seizing every opportunity that being at Acadia offers you. And when you get to that amazing future that awaits you in the future, make sure to pass that opportunity on by maybe it's joining the Acadia Café as an alumni and giving back to students. However that you can take what you've learned here to make the world a better place, that's the best honor that you can provide yourself and those who support you. All right, so we're going to move to the live Q&A section, and I'm going to check in with Beth McKenzie to see if we have had any questions during the presentation that I might be able to answer.
Thank you, Michelle. So my name is Beth McKenzie. I'm a co-op coordinator in cooperative education, and I currently oversee many of the science disciplines. So I did take a look here, and we only have one question from an attendee.
Oh, okay.
So we're not going to overload you with questions, Michelle. So the attendee asked, will this presentation be available later on so that they can refer back to it?
Yes, I believe so. So we are recording it, and I'm not entirely sure what our communications group has planned to do with it, but one of the things that I would say is that if you wanted to, if the student wanted to reach out to me directly, and they can do so by going to the co-op website, my information is there. It's michelle.larson@acadiau.ca. I can let you know when it's posted, or I can actually send the presentation to you for you to be able to reference it whenever you want to.
Okay, I think that's it. I don't see any other questions that have been posed since we switched over, so I think that's it for questions.
Okay, maybe just give it, we'll put a call out there for questions. Just there's a 20 to 30 second delay, so we'll maybe just give it a minute here just in case.
Okay, I think one just came in. So this was another question just came in. It's a really good question. It says, Michelle, you mentioned that you should, just one second here, I gotta find it again. So Michelle, you mentioned that you should have a skills section, but where do you put that info? In your job experience or a separate skills section? It's a good question.
It is a very good question. So what I typically like to see on a resume is, starting with your contact information, then having your education as your first section. I do recommend having a separate skills section, and then work experience underneath that. And so what happens sometimes, so I will say this, it is a good question, isn't it, Beth?
Yes, it is.
In your work experience section, you can add skills statements. This is in some ways the best place to put skills statements because it gives context to the person who's reading it. So you can pull real examples to showcase and prove the skills that you're talking about. But it's also really good to have another skills section which showcases other skills. You don't want to duplicate, or I try not to duplicate anyway, what's in your skills section and what's in your work experience section. So I would use the skills section itself to highlight other skills that maybe you haven't had a chance to talk about in that work experience section, particularly skills that do stem from the degree that you're doing. And again, particularly if you're applying to roles within your degree, because that skill section is really the only place that you can sometimes talk about the skills that you're gaining in the courses that you're taking. And so that's a really good place to put those, as well as other general skills that transferable skills that you really think that you're really great at. So maybe you don't have a great example for organization in your work experience section, but generally you have really good organization skills that maybe you could demonstrate by, I've held down a part-time job while balancing courses and still achieving, an A+ average. That would be a great place to put that in your skills section.
Okay, thank you, Michelle.
Any other questions?
Yeah, there's actually 2 more questions now.
Oh, so great.
That's great. The next question from another attendee, it says, are there many international co-op opportunities, especially in Europe?
Sure. So there are not a lot of international opportunities. We tend to partner with other organizations who can provide help and advice on things like applying for work permits, providing cultural training for the specific countries that you're going to, and who have people on the ground to help you locate and identify opportunities. So I'll use the German Academic Exchange Program as an example because that is the partner that we've worked with probably the longest. And so we help students identify that opportunity and have them apply through the German Academic Exchange Program. And if they're accepted, then from there, the German Academic Exchange Program provides a ton of services that I just described. It can be tricky going to other countries to work just because there are lots of intricacies involved in it. And we're quite a small co-op team. And so because we're not experts in all the requirements in all the different countries, we tend to rely upon these other organizations to help provide some of the services that we really feel students need to be successful when they go abroad. So, and we typically do like to see students completing their first work term in Canada, where we can get to them really quickly if we need to help them, because that's one of the things that our co-op team does is we support the students through the work terms, being there to help in any way possible if things are going well or if things are not going well. And so what I would say to anyone interested in a work term abroad is, to identify that early with your co-op coordinator that will be assigned to you so that you can work towards that particular goal. So not impossible. It is more rare than norm, but we'd be happy to work with you on it.
Okay, so we've got 3 more questions. They're all coming in all at once.
Good.
So that's really excellent. So the next one, Michelle, it says, can the co-op office arrange for co-op work terms for students who live in places outside of Nova Scotia?
So ultimately, the responsibility of finding housing does fall back to the student. But what I will say is that we will help in whatever way that we can. And if it's a place that is not here in Nova Scotia and the student is finding difficulty with that, we can also help you engage the employer in that particular search. But it's been really interesting. I've been in co-op for 15 years, and we have students who go coast to coast, all the way from BC to Newfoundland, and we've never had an experience where students have not been able to find, affordable housing in the locations that they're going to. Just the world has become so much smaller with the internet. So using things like Kijiji, or if you're going to a town or city that has a university, oftentimes there's really cheap sublets to be had in those particular cities. So we, again, will try to help you in whatever way that we can. It does become the responsibility of the student ultimately to find it, but I haven't had an instance where it hasn't worked out.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. So the next question I have, it says, on my resume, how far back should work experience, etc., date back to?
Well, that's a really good question. I think it all depends, but I would likely say at this stage, you could probably go back as far as you've been working. I mean, I think the more work experience that you have, the better it is. If you have been working, let's say, since I'm using myself as an example, I started working when I was 12 years old. So I had a lot of work experience by the time that I was, 20, 21. If you've had your earliest work experience, oftentimes is the less relevant to what you're trying to move towards. So as you go back in time, you may not become as descriptive with those work experience entries. You may just list them and list, your position title, the dates, and the employer that you had, and leave the skills statements blank. But I think at this stage, I would list as far back as you can go. That would be my my advice. Beth, also works with resumes, so maybe she has a counter opinion.
I think what I've often said with students, because I do have some students that have a fair amount of work experience, like you, Michelle, they start working when they were 12. So there might be some things on there where I'm thinking, okay, we need to find room on your resume. So maybe taking the, the nanny position that you had for 2 months in the summer, that may be time to come off, especially when I feel there's more relevant discipline related experience. But again, sometimes it comes down to space for me. And if they do decide to leave it on, it could be because it's directly related to the type of work they may be looking for, which may be demonstrating really like exceptional organizational skills or communication skills. Then maybe it would be worth leaving on, but maybe just one bullet. So yeah, that's where we come in handy, where we can make those suggestions and kind of guide students through the process.
Yeah,
so,
and that's a really good point, Beth, that that resumes really should be no longer than 2 pages. That's really the max. So sometimes you're right, that can help you decide what to cut, is that you may not have the space to put everything on it.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. We do have some more questions here. So the next one, are summer co-op work terms available? It's a pretty easy one for you, Michelle.
Yes. Yes. So summer work terms are available. Most work terms are scheduled during the summers when Acadia takes regular breaks. One thing to know about the co-op program is that to call ourselves co-op within a Canadian landscape, students will have a co-op work term somewhere in 3rd or 4th year scheduled in either a fall or a winter semester. And so when you come into co-op, you'll work with your co-op coordinator to figure out what that schedule looks like. For some disciplines, there's no, it has to be in the fall of 4th year as an example. For some disciplines, there's more flexibility. And so if you are in 1st year, one of the things to think about is, because you'll be stepping away from full-time classes in 3rd or 4th year to pursue co-op, to graduate on time, you will need to find a way to make up 3 additional courses to make that happen. And so, you may want to look, as an example, as taking some courses during the summer after 1st year to make up some of those courses. Graduating on time with co-op is definitely possible, but you do have to look for ways to make up those courses as you go. And students can also complete an additional course while on co-op, which also works towards helping them graduate on time.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. So right now, this I think could be our last question. This question is about extracurricular activities on a resume. So this particular student says, clubs and extracurricular activities from high school are still on my resume. Should I take that off my resume now?
So my advice, again, I think it kind of is related to the work experience question, how far back in time to go. So, typically with clubs, I typically am recommending to students to stop, in high school. Like, I wouldn't go back to elementary school as an example for different activities that you've been involved in. If you have not enough space, the oldest stuff tends to get cut first. Again, depending on relevance, if it's more relevant to what you're trying to pursue, you may want to leave it. One of the things that I really do recommend to students is starting off with a resume that has everything on it, because you might take something off of your resume because it's not relevant to what you're applying to, but then at a later date, it may be relevant. So you may want to paste it back in from that full resume that you have. And again, you can look for ways to cut things from your resume in terms of not just cutting the things that happened furthest in the past, but if you have very similar things listed, sometimes that's a good way to choose to get rid of the entry that's furthest from the past and keeping the more current one there. Beth, again, I'll turn to you for advice. Do you have any recommendations on that?
Yeah, that's excellent, Michelle. I do have some resumes I've seen with extracurricular related stuff from high school where, you know, they were on a basketball team 3 years in a row. Well, you know, if you're looking to cut space, maybe just the last year that you're on, or if you made it to provincials or something significant. But again, it always comes down to me to, well, sometimes I guess I've looked at it this way, depending on who's interviewing you too, that could be also a segue for a conversation if the person interview also has an interest in the same thing that maybe you were participating in. So let's say it was basketball and they were a basketball player in high school. Sometimes that could be a sounding board for a little bit of conversation. So it literally comes down to space for me always, especially as they get into their second year of university. If they're on, maybe they're in the chemistry club and they want to list some of the things they've done in the chemistry club. Well, that would be more pertinent if you're looking for a chemistry position than maybe something that you did in your, you know, in grade 11 or 12 in high school. So it's using your instincts as you're moving into a more professional looking resume. So yeah, it's definitely, it's a one-off. There's no easy answers. Again, with the resume, it's always evolving.
Agreed.
I don't see any other questions. I just checked again. So it looks like, I think that's it. I think that's it for our questions.
Okay.
They were wonderful questions.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We really just want to, again, welcome you to Acadia. We're really excited that you're here. It's going to be a great year, a different year for sure, but one filled with opportunity. And we wish you the best, and we will hopefully see you very soon. Thank you so much.